Hey guys, it's me, Tiffany Parker. Hello, hello, hello. I'm also going to be recording this on my phone so I can upload it. So tonight we're talking about vendor markets and COVID-19. As you know, there has been a lot of drama behind it, and I've noticed that nobody's talking about this. So, what I want to do tonight is have a brief discussion. This is not going to be long, a brief discussion about the expectations that vendors and coordinators have of each other, really. So, let's start off with, because I'm jumping right into this. Let's start off with from the perspective of a event coordinator, what it's like to be an event coordinator during a time like this. So, as an event coordinator, you will have at this time a lot of people who are emailing you, calling you, texting you, whatever, saying that they can't make their event, they're extremely ill, or somebody in their family is ill due to COVID, right? Or one of the variants or whatever, or they might just be sick and they haven't confirmed that it was COVID. So, from the perspective of some event coordinators, not all, some event coordinators, some people might feel, some event coordinators may feel that they're being lied to just so people can get out of doing their market, and they're just using COVID-19 as an excuse to not come to market so they can come to a different date because they technically really didn't want to go to the market for whatever reason. Now, I can understand why that would be frustrating. I really can. I can understand why that could be very frustrating, and why some people that may feel that um, vendors are just trying to get over on them, and it might not actually be true. You know what I mean? It might actually be the fact that they actually are sick. So the question is, so what do you do as an event coordinator? How do you combat that? And the only thing that I can really think of, because I've actually sat down and I'm right now, if you see it, I'm looking because I'm getting ready to share this to the Couture event page. But right now, the only thing that I can say is you need to have a cash reserve, or you need to have events lined up. So one of the biggest issues with vendor markets and event coordinators are most event coordinators have only like maybe one or two events planned out, and a vendor might not be able to make that particular event, and they want to switch. Now you got the problem with some event coordinators only have that one scheduled event, and there isn't anything else because they didn't think that far. In the back of their heads, they're like, oh, basically, oh, you can't come, you just lose your money. That's the mentality of a lot of event coordinators. And even before COVID, you just lose your space. Most coordinators, they kind of like it's almost as if an unspoken rule: if you can't make it, you just can't make it, and you don't get your money back. And I'm here tonight to pretty much say that's not really right, in my opinion. I personally feel that, first off, event coordinators shouldn't be spending any event money, zero of it, of any vendor's money, until the event is over. Meaning, from when an event starts to when it ends, once everything is taken care of, all services have been rendered, then you can do as you please with the funds. But till then, you shouldn't be doing anything. In the event, you have to give refunds. So I already know that there's going to be other coordinators that will see this video and get upset about it and feel that I'm wrong about it. But when you are running a business, you're always supposed to have backup cash anyway. You're always supposed to have a reserve in the event of. And it is not the vendor's fault that you don't have the money to refund them, or you don't have events lined up. So that's why I always tell vendors, you need to make sure that when you're getting ready to book events or you're getting ready to participate in a market, you need to see what the requirements are. Like in the event that you can't make it, are there any refunds? You need to read the vendor agreement, all of that, because say they cancel the event or say you can't come, it's technically not the event coordinator's fault. However, ethically, now, we're not talking about business. We're talking about ethics now. Event coordinators need to understand that it is also not the fault of other vendors who get sick or have family members who are getting sick. They're not, they have morals. Most of them do. They're not trying to come to market knowing that they are sick just so they can make $1. So with that knowledge in your head, you should be like, okay, I understand that. I need to make sure I have a backup reserve, because it's not fair. It's not fair, and it's not ethically right to take somebody's money because they can't come now to an event. Now, the way you can combat the people who, because there are vendors out there that will lie, that will tell you, oh yeah, I'm sick, I can't make it. And then you see them on Facebook and they're off in South Padre Island somewhere having a blast when they're supposed to be at the vendor market. I can understand why that would be frustrating, because now not only did you either refund this vendor or you let them transfer over to another date, you actually lost money. Whatever the booth fee was, you lost that because they were basically trying to get one over on you. So what you can do is 1 week out, you put on your platform, hey, if you can't make it, let me know 1 week out. If you don't hear from anybody, then at that moment you could say, okay, there's nothing I could do because I did tell you you had a week to let me know. And you should also, event coordinators, have an agreement ready to go. When a vendor signs up, let them read the agreement, put all your terms and stuff in there. And then have COVID terms. See, the way my business is set up is I usually tell people in my vendor agreement, you are supposed to give a week notice if you can't make it. If you can't give a week notice, then you can't transfer your event. I don't do refunds. I give transfers because I actually book out a year's worth of events at the venue I'm at. I book out a year's worth. So there's no reason why a vendor should never be able to come to a market unless they're just choosing not to come to a market or they are sick. When somebody tells me that they have COVID, I go ahead and say, okay, even if it's the night before and they tell me that they have COVID, I still let them transfer, because there is no way you could tell somebody, or and nobody's bringing you paperwork because it's really none of your business anyway. You can't tell somebody that they're not sick. You can't tell somebody that they don't have COVID. You can't. There's no way you can. So with that, you have to make sure that you have the money reserved until further notice. It's unfortunate, but that is just what we're living in right now. That's the world we're living in. And if you are that event coordinator who does not have backup, doesn't have extra events, then that's really not the vendor's fault. Now, from the perspective of the vendor, because I just spent 9 minutes talking about our issues that we have as event producers, and I told you the solutions already that you could do for that. Now, from the perspective of a vendor, when a vendor tells you, hey, I'm sick, or somebody in my family is sick, I'm not going to be able to make it. Is there any way that I can get a refund? Or is there any way that I can transfer my event to a later date? The event coordinator says, oh, I don't have another date. So then the vendor says, okay, that's okay, I'll take a refund. And then you tell them, oh, I can't give a refund. There aren't any refunds. This is the face that you will get, whether it's virtually or they're on the phone. They're just completely shocked. Like, I can't get a refund. Like, I just paid you like 2 days ago. They won't give you a refund. So me as a vendor, I'm kind of upset. I'm actually low key pissed off because it's like, why can't I get a refund if you don't have anything scheduled? So uh, the next thing that a vendor might do, some vendors will either A, go to social media about it and talk about it to other people and ask other people their opinion. They'll tag your business. They will screenshot the conversation if it was on text, and they will post about it. They'll do all this stuff basically to get a response that they want out of you, which is a refund. And then you have the other vendor that would be like, okay, that's okay. That's no problem. And then they go and they file a dispute against you. And I can understand why they would do that, because you're not working with them. You're not trying to accommodate them in any type of way. Then you have the coordinators that will say, okay, well, actually, I have an event coming up. I just haven't posted the date yet. I'm tying some loose ends to make sure everything's in order, and then I'll post about it. So a vendor might go, okay, that's great. As soon as you know, let me know. When a vendor says, as soon as you know, let me know, they're not talking about waiting a week or two. They're talking about waiting a day or two, not a week or two, for you to scrape up some random event so you can not have to refund because you think it's cheaper to just host something in the back parking lot somewhere, you know? It's also your reputation as an event producer. You don't want people to talk about you and drag your name and post about you and all this stuff. And the only way you don't want them to do that. You want to have a good reputation. You want people to know that, okay, if something happens to me or something happens to one of my family members, or I just can't make it because of something that happened, because guess what, people, we are humans at the end of the day. We have family, we have friends, we have a life of our own. Things happen. And sometimes it's uncontrollable. And sometimes you have to work with people. And it's just, that's just the way it is. So as an event coordinator, you have to have some empathy and some understanding of what industry you're in. And you can take this and actually take this to any business. Understand that people come first. When you put people first, you will always have a business, because they're going to know, they're going to trust you with the fact that they know Tiffany is not going to take their money in any type of way. They know Tiffany, if I tell her I can't make it, I'm sick or something's happened, and it could be last minute, she's going to be completely understanding, and she's going to say, okay, let's look at the calendar, or whenever you have an opportunity, look at the calendar and just tell me what your rescheduled date is, and we can go from there. That is what you have to do. And if you're going to be in this industry as an event coordinator, you need to have markets ready to go. You need to have more than one. I suggest 4 or 5 if you're just starting out. Just book them. They don't have to be consecutive, like every single weekend. They could be for a month, like once a month for 4 months. That way, if you don't want to do refunds, you have to offer the vendor something. You have to offer them something. You can't just tell them, no, I'm so sorry, you don't get your money back. Now, there are going to be some coordinators who call BS on what I'm saying, and they're going to not care what I'm saying. And that's when you see people who are going to call them scam artists. I'm telling you, people are going to think you're trying to scam them, especially if it was only one event that you had so-called booked, especially if the vendor didn't go and verify anything and they do find out that you had already canceled the event and everything else. So you don't want to be called a scam artist. You don't want to be called dragged on social media. You don't want any of that. Have backup reserves. Don't spend the money until services are rendered. Or if you end up spending the money, because it happens, if you end up spending the money, you have backup events to back that up, to be able to give the vendor. Vendors out there, if you are the type of person who just doesn't want to go to market that day, it's just best to let the event coordinator know in a week. I believe in letting people transfer. If you want to put a cap on that as an event coordinator, you could tell them you can only transfer 3 times. After that, you have to pay for your space. You could do that. You're well within your rights for that. If you're the vendor and it happens to you 3 times, then you really need to sit back and evaluate if vendor markets is something that you really want to do. Because if you really don't want to do vendor markets and you really don't care, and you really don't care for it like that, like you thought you would, then you just need to express that to the event coordinator. Because if that's the case and you tell them you don't want to do any markets anymore, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get your money back, because it's not like the coordinator told you you couldn't come. And it's not like you were sick, or it's not like, you didn't have opportunities to go. You chose not to go. You removed yourself from it. So that is not the event coordinator's fault at all. So you really need to take a look at that too, if that's what it really is. But during COVID-19, there are going to be times where you get to an event, there might be more than one direct sales company of the same company, because, and this is another thing that I noticed that vendors think that coordinators are responsible for. Coordinators do not have to abide by the rules of what the company that you signed up with. We don't have to abide by the rules that there could only be one paparazzi or one color street or Scentsy. We don't abide by those rules. We do our best to respect those rules that you guys have, really, to respect the vendor, not necessarily the company, the vendor, because we understand having 2 color streets or 2 of the same direct sales company at a market that is actually pretty small. Because even if you had 100 vendors, I could see you getting away with 2 of one company. But if you have like 40 vendors, 2 at one event is not going to work. So you're going to have to work with them and figure out the schedule, because it's also not their fault that they did get sick, or a family member got sick and could not come to market that day. But say, like for me, I have vendors, some direct sales, that have booked out the whole entire year with me. So I can't, and maybe they got sick, right? So they got sick, but say they booked out 6 events. They booked out their 6 events. They couldn't come to 3 of them. But the other 6 events, the other 6 out of the 12, another coordinator has already booked. Now, the only way that it could go 2 ways. One, you could tell them, hey, you're going to have to be at this event because there's no other events. Or you can book them for the next year, or you can refund them their money. Most events, depending on the size of the event, because I've had like Boo Fest where I've had 2 of one direct sales company, but it was so many people and so many vendors, to the point where it didn't really bother them, because it was just a lot of people. So like if you have 100 vendors, but you also have maybe 1,000 people coming through, that's different, because then it's not like it's really affecting your sales. Not every 1,000 person is going to stop by your booth, is not affecting your sales. It's if you have 40 vendors and maybe only 100 people coming through, where yes, it could technically, affect the sales of another coordinator. But I do suggest always, like I said, having those money reserves on deck, ready to go in the event that you have to refund somebody. And with COVID and everything going on, these are some things we're just all going to have to deal with, and we're all going to have to work together, because we can't do what we're doing without the other. You can't have a vendor market with no vendors, and you can't have a vendor without a coordinator who's putting it together, who's putting up the money, who's doing all this. For us to coexist and to work with each other is going to require communication. That's just the bottom line. It's going to require communication. You are going to have to open your mouth if you cannot be somewhere, because if you don't say anything, as a vendor. If you don't say anything to the event coordinator, you don't tell them that you're sick, you don't tell them that you just don't want to come, like, and you don't do it within a reasonable amount of time, like a week before, the event coordinator doesn't have to refund you, and they don't have to give you another event, because at that point you are just choosing not to come. You chose not to come. Nobody took anything from you. You chose not to come, so therefore you gave your money away. And I'm going to get into how not to get scammed as a vendor too, because there's a lot of that going on and I'm not understanding why. I'm really not understanding why, when there are so many ways to verify if a vendor event is real or not, if the coordinator is legit or not, or if the coordinator is good at what they do and are trustworthy and have a good reputation. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes a couple of clicks on the computer, a little search on Facebook or Instagram, and you'll know within like 10 minutes if it's a legit market or not. Heck, a phone call. I'm just saying, we're going to get into that. And I'm closing now. Oh, this was a pretty good in-depth 20 minutes. I am closing with that. I do have an event coming up on the 5th of February. Is the Kisses, Hugs, and Love Bugs Market. It's from 12 to 5 at the Kingwood Town Center Park right here in Kingwood, Texas. If you're interested, I'll leave all that information in the description of this video and my contact information and the link to book that market. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment. I will be more than happy to answer those. So I hope you guys enjoy this live. This is how I'm going to be going live from now on. I most likely will go live through my through my YouTube channel over Facebook. And if you haven't subscribed and you like this content, please go ahead and hit that subscribe and that like button and share with people that you think will value this information. All right, you guys have a good one, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.